Leader of the Opposition can only lead us to diagnose him with RDS, Relevance Deprivation Syndrome. Relevance Deprivation Syndrome, as Gareth Evans once described going out of government. And that speech shows how irrelevant Mr Gough and his failed party opposite has become. But look, I understand the situation they find themselves in. I remember going into opposition after 9 years in power. And it is true, you do go through the 7 stages of grief. The 7 stages of grief. First up, it's shock and denial. It's shock and denial, that you react to learning of the loss in numbed disbelief. You deny the reality, and you shock provides an emotional protection from being overwhelmed at once. Look, that's what it's like. 9 years in office, the media and the left-wing rags telling them that they were completely impenetrable, the best government New Zealand had. Of course, it's shock and denial. And then the second stage is pain and guilt. Pain and guilt. As the shock wears off, it's replaced with unbelievable suffering. You may have guilty feelings or remorse over things you did or didn't do.
Order.
The
Speaker does not have pain.
Mr. Speaker, as I quote from this, Mr. Speaker, you remember the apologies about, oh, we shouldn't have done the seabed in foreshore. We're guilty about that. Oh, you know, we shouldn't have been so politically correct. You know about that. You know, and we shouldn't have done the Electoral Finance Act. Feel our pain, feel our guilt. And then the third stage of the 7 steps, the 7 stages of grief, anger and bargaining. Frustration gives way to anger, and you may lash out and give unwarranted blame. Please try to control this, as permanent damage to your relationships may result. And we're seeing that. We're seeing that in the party opposite. David Cunliffe has not spoken to Phil Gough in question time at any time I've seen for a very long time. I don't know. That's very sad. And of course, all the bargaining that's going on. There's all these deals about who's going to go to Phil's barbecue this Christmas, who isn't, who's going to replace him, what's going to go on. That's in stage 3. And I think they're stuck between stage 3 and stage 4, reflection and loneliness. Just when your friends may think you should be getting on with your life, the quote is, a long period of sad reflection will overtake you. I remember that. Nick Smith remembers that. Simon Power remembers it. It's pretty tough. And that's why that party sits with its head down and embarrassed when their leader gets up and gives the sort of general debate speech. And when you are 2 weeks from Christmas and your party president has to stand up with the leader and pledge undying loyalty. Look, we remember that. It's so disingenuous. You get up and you pledge undying loyalty, no problems. Caucus was happy with everything, no concerns at all, and then the guy from Wellington Central, Robertson's out talking to the press gallery, giving them the full story on what actually happened. So it's the 7 stages of grief. They're nowhere near the next step, which is the upward turn. And then that's about 9 years away. And then you've got to go through reconstruction, and that will be David Cunliffe's big opportunity to deal with everything, with reconstruction, and then you move to acceptance and hope. But the country sees there'll be no acceptance of a Labour government when you consider how they failed over 9 years to provide this country with the leadership and direction that John Key is providing New Zealanders. And they failed to realise that, as has been said in Australia, they're not a government in exile. They're an opposition. The country told them that it was time they left, and it's time that they realise they've got a long way to go.
Honourable David Cunliffe.